good day or good night to whoever's watching. It's my pleasure today to have a quick little chit chat with this fine gentleman here today. His name is Adil Khan. Hi, Adil.
Hi, Neil.
So Adil's joining us from where today, Adil? Tell us a little bit about where you're joining us from before I jump into an introduction of you.
Thank you. I am joining from a very snow-ridden northern New Jersey. But it's one of those Norman Rockwell picture postcards. So can't complain.
Nice. That's awesome. We finally have snow, which is amazing. It's
Yes,
it's
we do.
awesome to finally have snow. So I had the pleasure of meeting Adil at the OPEX summit recently, the global summit. He was a speaker there, and we're very, very lucky at Digital First to have Adil join us as today's guest speaker. My name is Neha Singh. I am the interim CEO of Digital First, a process improvement company that helps companies reduce the time it takes to do process improvement by almost 80%. So if you guys have a process improvement need, definitely come to us. The reason we're doing these automation webinars is getting your processes clear is a prerequisite to doing automation. So we have some of the world's leading transformation specialists, and Adil today brings with us a wealth of experience and insight, particularly in the realm of finance automation and digital transformation. So he's not only a transformation leader, but also an innovator and a solutions creator with BD, a testament to his deep expertise and leadership in driving organizational change and innovation. One of the key highlights of Adil's work in his innovative approach to tackling complex changes, such as the automation of foreign corporation reporting processes. By leveraging advanced technologies like SharePoint 365 workflow and machine learning tools, Adil has not only saved countless hours of manual labor, but has also enhanced the accuracy and consistency within financial operations. So this webinar is really for anyone that's looking to do that, is to increase the the accuracy and consistency of financial operations through automation. And Adil is here because he has strategic insights that extend beyond mere technological solutions. So Adil's not just going to come here and tell you about technological solutions. He emphasizes the importance of breaking down transformation initiatives into manageable, bite-sized chunks and ensuring quick wins and tangible benefits for organizations. His philosophy is very aligned with our philosophy at Digital First, because we're all about empowering internal teams while judiciously leveraging external expertise to drive sustainable change. In today's session, Adil will share his perspectives on various aspects of finance automation, transformational leadership, and the journey towards digital maturity. Whether you're a seasoned finance professional or a transformation enthusiast, I have no doubt that Adil's insights will inspire and enlighten you. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Adil, a transformation leader, an innovator, and a solutions creator with BD to the virtual stage. And to get us started, Adil, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your current role at BD, what brought you to BD, and what set you on this journey.
Thank you, Nia. First of all, I want to thank Nia and the rest of the team at Digital First for having me here. I very much appreciate it. I think before I begin, I'd like to say first and foremost that I embrace change. To me, change is very important in professional development as well as within your personal and corporate life. And to me, transformation is just that natural evolution of change. Certainly, the discipline of change management is part of that. But I wanted to note that because my roles at BD and prior to BD has always been impacting or touching change in some way. Prior to BD, I was known as the transformation and turnaround leader, and would set up EPMOs and re-engineer business processes. At BD, I was hired in 2011 to really set up two mandates. First was to set up our EPMO organization worldwide as a result of lessons learned from our from our, let's just say, uh, well over budget SAP implementation. And then the other was to set up what are referred to as principal companies. These are, you can consider them as mini headquarters outside of your corporate HQ. And they require having expertise across finance, operations, quality, supply chain, regulatory, and procurement, which I do have functional expertise across all of those disciplines. And so as a result of having oversight of them and being the SOX owner of them, I've naturally embraced transformation through automation. So hopefully that wasn't too much of a mouthful, but kind of sets the stage
No,
in terms of
I
what's
really
going on.
like that. And for the listeners listening or the viewers watching now or later even, what is the full acronym? Describe EPMO just so we all have context as to what that is exactly.
So EPMO is Enterprise Program or Project Management, right?
Yes,
And
that's what I
so
thought it was.
when an organization specific, it normally comes up as a lessons learned, right? That the board, depending on the size of your organization, they'll say, a board will say, or an outside third party, say auditor, will say, you know what, you could have saved X amount of money if you had a structured way for this initiative. And it often, the findings is they often lack process and discipline, which was my expertise and has been my expertise. Now I just transitioned that into the finance space for the past 15 years, right? And so now I just bring all of that into finance transformation.
That's amazing. It's always surprising how your experience in certain areas that you feel like I'm never going to use that again, you'll use over and over again. It's a very young person thing when you're younger to think I'm never going to use that experience ever again, and then it comes in handy, right? So tell us a little bit about your strategic approach to transformation. So when people are thinking about embarking on transformation, because transformation is such a big word, right? Like it's a massive word, it's a massive undertaking. And right now, if you're not transforming, if you're not keeping up, and in my opinion, the finance processes is the lowest hanging fruit for automation, right? And so that's sort of
Certainly.
why we started that. So tell us a little bit more about your strategic approach to transformation and what your paradigm is around that.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I will say is, just to put it in context for the audience, BD is a very large medical device technologies company. It has north of 70,000 associates worldwide, north of 24 billion in revenue annually, and it has at least 8 standalone business units that generate no less than $1 billion in revenue each, some north of 8 billion in revenue.
Yeah.
And I sit in corporate finance, so I sit across that entire umbrella. I give this context because when we're thinking about transformation, right, it is you have to think about it in like concentric circles, if you will. You think about it from, well, are you transforming your department versus transforming a small process versus transforming a mega process like procure to pay or source to cash, right? So depending on what you're touching, really should inform you in terms of your approach to that transformation, and also what technology to employ in addition to process harmonization, which really is going to be the key of our discussion here. To me, that those are the minimum things you have to do first and foremost before you look at infusing technology in your transformation journey. So I'll
That's
pause here.
awesome. Yeah, I like that. I think that, I'm just going to bring up a little visual because I think this is relevant when we talk about the strategic approach to transformation. Because this is, I'm not taking credit for this, the base slide, because this is from IBM, so it's full credit to IBM here, and it's about it's their cloud pack for business automation. And the point that you're making is, and this is the point that IBM makes, is in order to transform a process, you have to go one process at a time. So the ops management actually identifies the need. You go into process mining and modeling. Then you have your business process analyst look at it. then they go through an analysis phase, and then the IT author or developer builds the apps, gets to low code automation, and actually then the end user says, oh, finally it's here. But even when you get there, you might not actually make it work. So we will be coming back to this visual a few times, but that is exactly what you're talking about in terms of strategic approach to automation. So we'll come back to that visual,
That's exactly right.
as we further into the conversation. All right. So tell us a little bit about, when you were getting into, when you're looking at the technology solutions, so when we talk about integration with existing technologies, because we're big proponents of let's use the technology right in your own backyard, which means we believe like if you're a big enough business, you've bought enough pieces of software and given up on enough pieces of software. And so I'm really curious in terms of like how did you start that journey? Like BD is of course massive, but just curious about how you started that journey for BD, and how did you get around deciding on your technology stack, if you will, because there'll be some vendors on the call and things like that would be very interested in understanding that, to say, how did you start that journey? So yeah, I'm really curious about that.
So excellent question. So I would say, and I would recommend that it begins with what is the complexity within your organization. Certainly the size of your organization makes a difference, right? If you're tens of billions in revenue and multiple business units, you likely have a decentralized structure for many processes. And I don't mean decentralized completely. I mean the ability to transform end to end will likely be difficult. Whereas if you have, say, sub 100 million in revenue, the opportunity should likely be greater. But beyond that, there is also the cultural aspect of your organization. And what I mean by that is do you have a federated model when it comes to technology, or a centralized model? And right, because depending on where your IT organization sits culturally, that will also give you, right, the ability to go one path versus another. And I think last but not least is looking within your ecosystem of available tools before going outside of your four walls, if you will, of your organization. The space we're talking about is ETL, right? Extract, transform, load. There are a host of technologies out there and vendors that have excellent solutions in this space. And I note that because what you'll often find, right, in today's environment is you'll want a combination of self-serve and self-use technologies, which ETL tools fit very nicely in that space, with a balance of externally outsourced and externally outsourced technology solutions vendors to achieve your transformation need. So hopefully that kind of gives a broad sense of the approach.
Yeah. That's a great one. So I think, I know it's not a structured question, but I just want you to just, I love the ability to provide a little bit of a detailed understanding of ETL possibilities in this day and age, right? Because you almost don't have to, in my opinion. So I'm a programmer by trade. I'm a database administrator back in the day. I moved through the ranks and project management. So I know enough to be dangerous. And I haven't practiced any of my data transformation skills recently. But I know theoretically that in this day and age, you shouldn't have to really convince vendors on the ETL piece, which is like getting systems to communicate directly with each other and make that connection happen. So can you just simplify ETL a little bit more in terms of the data? I call it like sort of data federation or information exchange. So to make it simple, the ease of information exchange. So just explain ETL a little bit better for people who wouldn't understand ETL, basically.
I will do my best. So one, you're already better than I am in terms of having the ability, right? Even if you have forgotten it to program, because I was nowhere near that. But with that said, ETL tools, the reason they are good and and their adoption has been increasing over the past 5 years, is because they allow a dodo like myself that does not have a comp sci background to basically, through a palette selection of tools, widgets, if you will,
Mhm.
select the tool that does a certain thing, pull the information from your desktop or from your network, and transform that data. And it's not that it doesn't require training, but it doesn't require a comp sci degree, and in terms of barrier to entry, almost anyone can pick it up. And I say almost anyone because if some people just don't gravitate towards it, but vast majority do, and inevitably in your department there'll be a population of likely 50-60% that can easily come up to speed with an ETL technology or tool, depending on the tool we're talking about, versus you know in the old days so I'll give you in context. In the old days when ETL came out, it really was for programmers. It really was for
Yeah.
comp sci majors, right? And so you really
Mhm.
had to have programming language, and that's the beauty of ETL tools. You don't need programming language or
Yeah.
knowledge. So
I,
I know that was a roundabout answer, but hopefully that helps a little
No,
bit.
no, I like it. I like the non-technical answer, because that's really what I was looking for, is to explain ETL to someone that doesn't have a comp sci background. Comp sci stands for computer science, for whoever is listening or watching. I'm like, I make an attempt to explain every piece of jargon we use, because I worked in healthcare, worked in mining, and we basically, very good at using jargons all the time. And now in technology we use jargons as well.
This is true.
So
This
I
is true.
yeah, so I try to make it a point to do that. So obviously a big piece of trying to make something like this stick and work, even though you're automating things, right, is really something, a topic that's very close to my heart, is the resistance to change, because it's change, right? So I personally know some business owners that don't run that big business, but multi-million dollar businesses, that say, oh my god, I need to have my eyes on this, because I can find this better than anyone else can, and I can, I know how to find the errors and in whatever the orders or the processing or what have you, and they trust their own judgment. So, well, tell me a little bit about your process to overcoming that resistance to change, and where it might not have been at BD, because we don't want to say like it's at BD, but just anonymizing it, to say, where did you in general notice that resistance to change? Because I'll go back to this visual from IBM, and in this particular visual, at the bottom, so on step number 4, where everything is happy, 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 you could be like, hey, let's do it. We've got it all ETL worked up here. The business analyst is happy. Let's put it out there. But then the end user is like, well, I don't trust that. Like, where is that coming from? So do you have any stories like that? Do you have any examples of resistance to change that you might have experienced, and how you would have gone past it? So I'm just really curious about that.
No, so absolutely. In finance, right? You will experience, especially if you work for a large, older, right, organization, and med device pharma tends to be conservative, right, in terms of its approach. Rightfully so. We are dealing with lives and patient care and so forth. And so, what there is the tried and true technology is Excel, right? Excel is the workforce and the workhorse of your finance function. And so, um, often when you're infusing technology or automation or workflow, and especially if you're pulling out of Excel like steps, right, you really need to get people bought into why it's better for them, how it's going to improve not only their lives in terms of staying up later are working over the weekends to verify data and make sure there's no errors in files and formulas, but also that they're not right. They're not going to be process improving themselves out of a job, right?
Yeah.
So those are right. Those are all realities, and what I did in the past. So in 2017, late 17, early 18, I deployed RPA, right? Robotic
Mm-hmm.
process architecture. That's what RPA stands for, and I did it in a process that you often don't do. And what I mean by that is you deploy RPA for a highly repetitive, manual, heavy, intensive task, right? That a human is doing, so that you can free that human up to do more value add work.
Mm-hmm.
I most of those activities that I had available to me, we had already process improved, if you will, and pulled it out to our shared services location, right? And so those repetitive work were being no longer done right at the center in
Yeah.
corporate, but were done at the SSC. And so as a result, I had few processes to choose from, but I chose a process, nevertheless, knowing that it wasn't normally going to fit the RPA box, right, qualifier, but I knew that it was going to change our approach to process improvement. I knew it was going to change, have a paradigm shift in how people thought about automation. And
Yeah.
that would be my answer to everyone that's listening is, if you have an opportunity for a low-hanging fruit and you can deploy and improve a process, certainly do that. But if you're in an organization that is culturally resistant, and is conservative by nature, think of ways that are low cost and low in terms of negative impact to the work effort that goes about on a, whether you're talking about yearly close or quarterly close or monthly billing cycle, right? To
Yeah.
deploy process and technology improvements, and to start that shift,
Uh,
right? To start that cultural shift, so you're not in that fourth nirvana box of the IBM after everything
yeah.
else is done.
That's a really really good point, and I think like in addition to the resistance to change, I think the complexity and chaos, you ease that, you the time constraints, you ease that, like in terms of so you kind of got the right stakeholder involvement. These are the challenges that you typically mitigated before you got towards addressing your resistance to change bit. So I really that really speaks to me a lot. So, tell me a little bit about, specific use cases. So when I say use case, I have to define what I mean by use case, because um, use case basically for the people listening is the direct application. So people like to hear about case studies and things like that. So the use case is actually how you applied a specific thing. Like Microsoft Word is a tool. You can use Microsoft Word for a lot of things. Actually, my new favorite tool is I would say Microsoft Copilot. It's got to be my new favorite tool, because I did do a comparison with a prompt. I compared it to Chat GPT 3.5, and here's my little plug for Microsoft Copilot. I don't get any commission to use
It's
it.
certainly better than the old Clippy.
Oh my God, and that that would be like the understatement of the century,
Absolutely.
but
But yeah,
I'm
Microsoft
going
Copilot is good. Very good. Yeah.
yeah, I'm going off on a tangent here, but Microsoft Copilot, you could use it. There are many different ways to use it. I recently used it by feeding it a transcript and asking it to produce sort of a problem statement, and ChatGPT did it, but Microsoft Copilot did it in an advanced way. So I'm now using it specifically for that, or to basically make concise descriptions of things that we're talking about. Actually, we're going to do probably going to create a frequently asked questions out of this recording of today's webinar, and be able to produce that really, really quickly. So going back to use cases,
Yep.
is how give us examples of how this has been used. And so Adil will just give us a few examples of specific use cases that he's seen in his lifetime. And there was something I heard about that I'm going to share that's a shocking statistic. So it's I'm going to call it a statistic because I'm not allowed to share the company and I'm not allowed to share the vendor, but I'm allowed to share the data that was discovered. So as a result of implementing a process mining software. But yeah, go ahead, Adil. Tell us a little bit about some of the use cases that you've seen and what you've implemented.
Sure, absolutely. So, no doubt in finance, there are multiple opportunities, right? And again, going back to the complexity of your organization, um, uh, really it will inform that. And certainly so will if you have um, outsource, right, your repetitive tasks to either an right, in company, right, within your organization service center, or maybe you outsource it to a third party solution provider to do that. But in either case, right, all of that will be that entry to selecting the appropriate use case. For me, what I did was I um, I'll give you two examples. One, state apportionment is it's a tasking activity that takes, like, it's just mundane. It's stuff that you have to do if you're a multinational and you sell in all 50 states. You need to understand, right, what your state income is, what your exclusions are, et cetera, et cetera. And so I deployed RPA to that because RPA is an excellent usage for it. It allows us to do that repetitive work and offload it from a human who, quite frankly, right, will get bored after a few months of doing it, and and so you don't want to lose people. So those type of activities are great for RPA.
That's awesome.
Another example is, again, if you're a large corporation that has any significant income from foreign jurisdictions, right? So if you have 40 plus, 30 plus percent of your income from outside the US, then you're going to need to understand your foreign corporation reporting, right? And that's specifically done at the end of your fiscal year, right? So you can understand. So when you're filing your taxes to the IRS, as anticipating that you're a U.S. multinational, you're going to need to know what your foreign subs have earned. And so what we had was a process where, and I was part of all of this, by the way. So in 2014, we acquired CareFusion for $9 billion, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
And
It's like a little chunk of change. Yeah, $9 billion.
yeah, but worse was in 18, we acquired CR Bart for $24 billion.
Wow.
And in came, right, is the integration of those finance functions, which I did at the corporate tax level. And so what we had was, and some of you listening and watching may be in that same paradigm where we had parts of our organization that were on SAP and using BPC, and there are other parts of the organization that were on JD Edwards and other various ERP tools, and they were using HFM or other financial reconciliation systems, and so the process was not harmonized. So again, like one of the fundamental, right, thread I'd like to reinforce here is you have to first harmonize your process before you infuse technology. So I had a
I love that.
yeah, you really need to, because otherwise what you're going to do is you're going to chase technology anomalies, technology disruptions as a result of process not being harmonized. And so what I did was I took a multi-phase approach to it by first harmonizing the process, and I did that by first making sure we were all on BPC, right? So we moved
Mhm.
out of HFM and
Wow.
consolidated into BPC. That
Mhm.
allowed us to have the the various associates that were going and accountable for the various parts of our business pull the information in the same uniform fashion. I also early on employed SharePoint 365 to deploy workflow and calendarizing and task management features of SharePoint, which are very good because that allowed people to then uh, to to know that there is a standard calendar and a standard time frame, and they
Yeah.
receive a standard message with a standard Excel file, right? And so all of that, still not technology, right? Still not automation yet, but again, moving towards that continuum of getting to the place where we can now leverage automation ETL. And so phase three, if you will, right, was now employing an ETL tool and converting an Excel file that was sent
Mhm.
basically empty. And you can imagine these are massive Excel files with multiple tabs, thousands of lines of data.
Yeah.
They were sent empty in the past, right? So that the
Mhm.
foreign controllers can fill out all the information. But in
Yeah.
the current state now, the workflow sends out a pre-populated, about 95 to 97% complete file, right?
Yeah.
Because it's pulling information from BPC and making sure it's pulling all the right data and putting it in the right location, making sure and locking down formulas and so forth. So there's no opportunity for people to re-enter or override code. And then
Yeah.
what's left over is like the unique country specific, like jurisdiction specific data, that specific legal entity data that only they have access to. And so
Yeah.
what we were able to do with this approach was go from harmonizing to automation, ultimately saving over 1,100 person hours a year, and that's year over
That's
year,
amazing.
and over 7 weeks of data gathering, which right,
Wow.
which people were very happy about.
For
So hopefully,
sure.
like those
Absolutely.
two give you two spectrums of the opportunities that you can employ after factoring in what is the organizational and technology reality within your company.
Yeah, and I bring this visual up because you really went through all of these phases. This essentially, when you said number three, you were there. You were talking about the tools and things like that, and then the low code automation. So you guys did follow essentially the process as you went through. And when just a little plug for Digital First here, because we're doing these series of educational events just to talk about our rapid process transformation services. So this is not our visual. This is an IBM visual. Again, full credit to IBM. But this is we just sort of a little company that has a whole bunch of facilitators that do measurable little improvement events with you for rapid process transformation. We have our own system, our desired diagnostic system that understands like why people would be motivated to change. Because Adil had a point he made earlier around streamlining systemizing the process, but people don't want to process map themselves out of a job. So we have the desired diagnostics process, and then by the time we're done, we give you a ready to go onboarding package. So if you want to just systemize the process and move on with it, that'd be fine. But if you wanted to do what Adil is doing here, which is actually go towards automation, you can just take that and you can actually go towards automation and pick the next one to go towards automation. So I appreciate Adil, the connection to to the value of the service that we're delivering for people as it goes to digital first. So
And I was just going to say, if you were in operations, that's considered a Kaizen event. So
yes,
you're very much right in sync with your brothers and sisters in other disciplines. So trust me, folks,
yeah.
there's commonalities across what we do here.
100%. That's exactly it. And a Kaizen event, that's our value prop, because as a Kaizen event typically takes 3 days to do, whereas doing a digital first rapid process transformation event takes 90 minutes. And hey, who doesn't have a 90-minute meeting in their schedule? But this one, it'll actually terminate after a certain amount of time, and you'll get actual results out of it. So I really, really like that. So beyond BD, beyond your personal experience, Adil, and maybe I'll start with this answer because they're some cool things that you might have heard of in the automation world that maybe are true or maybe not true. Because we talk to a lot of vendors. You talk to a lot of vendors as well. I'm sure there's lots of vendors pitching to you, and one of the so what, then what's of finance automation and implementing something like a process mining tool. So a process mining tool, for those of you who don't know what that is basically has nothing to do with mining. That's the first thing, because we have a lot of mining people. A process mining tool is a piece of software that sits on top of any existing piece of software. So it sits on top of an ERP system, for example, from a finance perspective. And what it does is it actually does a bit of a map, and it builds its own database of how users make decisions, the workflow for users to make decisions. And then based on that, you can actually query and sort of say, evaluate if business rules are being followed. So something as simple as an invoice should not be paid more than once. That's a pretty simple rule to follow. Somebody has to charge something, they send another whole invoice in, but you don't pay the same invoice more than once. So one of the stories I had heard was, obviously another massive company, not BD, not anyone we work for, that deployed the use of this process mining tool on top of their ERP system, and found sort of $1 billion. That was the quoted figure, $1 billion in duplicate invoice payments. And of course, when you are a 90 to $100 billion company, $1 billion in duplicate invoice payments, and it's over a period of time, right? So it's over a period of time, but that's still $1 billion in duplicate invoice payments.
It's real money.
It's real cash that they paid. And vendors, even vendors as small as us, wouldn't have noticed a duplicate payment necessarily, right, into their thing. So it's into their account. So it's really an interesting use case for something as simple as a process mining tool. And I thought that was a very interesting one. Have you heard of anything like that? Like anything different that's like in the automation world that comes to mind for you? I know it's not a question that I put, but I like to make you think. That's why I talk so much before I ask you the question.
I have where I'm seeing the industry evolve is so early on, right? You had really like process mapping, process identification, and now what you're really, Nia, referring to is in the task mining space. So it's not just process, but task mining. And so you're taking like a PO task itself, right, and saying, okay, in my company, I have 10 people that do this PO, right, creation, and I'm gonna document how each one of these 10 individuals do it. And right, there is obviously in an organization likely will have a PO policy, right? Finance absolutely does, but right, one can argue, depending on where you sit within the organization, what jurisdiction you're sitting in, you'll adapt that process to fit your needs. And so really good tools in this space, take it and say, well, based on this, here is the best standardized approach we recommend that you do across your organization, given the variabilities between all of the people. But here are the commonalities that all 10, in my theoretical example, people do. And as a result of that, it can anticipate and quantify efficiencies in terms of turnaround time, days saved, etc. And I won't go into specifics because we are looking into that as well.
Yeah.
But that's definitely the space, right? That I see vendors going to, and also deploying, I would say, LLMs, which are large language learning models, right? Because you need to employ LLMs, right? Which is right, not a precursor, but it's a enabler as a result of having artificial intelligence, right? AI and ML capabilities in the tool. And so when I look at
Can you describe this as much detail as you can, like the use case of an LLM, because that's something new that I'm just learning a little bit about. So just give us like the 2-minute, like the 2-second version of the LLM and how people are using it and why they're using LLM, the language learning models.
So I'll do it in two examples, two very different examples, but just do
Okay.
it for sake of just for everyone's
Yeah.
appreciation. So you could deploy an LLM for, say, PO process, right? Or
Yeah.
because you'll have what it does is it learns where certain data should be, right? It learns where the field, where paid to, billed to, shipped to, things like that, right? And so,
Yeah.
and it learns it even in unstructured data, even like in a Word document. Often there's words that or phrases that pre-qualify some data elements, right? So
Mhm.
LLMs are great for there because in PO you can drastically improve efficiencies, excuse me, and reduce times and free up your associates from that mundane task. Another,
Mhm.
to me, more interesting, right, and I think more forward-looking opportunity for LLMs is doing your 10K, your country by country reporting, or your transfer pricing reports. Like again, if you're a large multinational with income from various foreign jurisdictions, because what large multinationals do is they have to create their transfer pricing files, their 10Ks, and these are
Yeah.
largely, right, recycled information. If you think about it, 80+% of it is carryover from the previous years, and so
Yeah.
really good LLMs can reduce your cost in hiring a third party firm to do that
Yeah.
for you. And so those are, I would say, two really very straightforward
Really great
applications.
use cases. Yeah, those are very, very, very good. And what I like about, like, I think that, what you consider straightforward, right, in terms of applications, because like, we work with businesses of all sizes. I'm sure there are some people who've not even started the journey who still send out manual
Yeah.
invoices in large volumes, are going, are you kidding me? So really, I think if I sort of try to simplify that a little bit, is any algorithm, anything that you can reverse engineer into an algorithm, can be converted to actually being fed into an LLM. So any set of rules, any set of business rules that you have, that you can write down, you can train a language learning model to understand and then validate before you deploy more broadly. So I think I got that right, Adil?
No, absolutely. And here's the thing, really good LLM tools can learn from very small data. I
Yeah,
wouldn't advise it, right? Because it'll
yeah,
come, it'll conclude things that won't be
correct. Yeah,
accurate.
yeah,
But
yeah,
the point is, you can don't feel that you have to have everything together. You can learn, you can train your LLM tool to learn over time and therefore get better, right?
yeah,
So that's the piece, right? One of the things I'm glad you reminded me, Nia, by making that comment. One of the things I just want to leave people with is don't feel daunted by, oh my God, there's so much opportunity, or I'm so behind, or my organization is very complex, or it's so manual. Where do I begin? Just start small and expand and refine that practice, right? That process,
yeah.
that activity, right? Don't try to go to perfect in your first transformation case, right? Because
Yes,
you will be disappointed. Uh, in some cases you
absolutely.
can, but yeah, I'm all about continuous improvement in transformation.
I love that. I think that's the perfect message we want to leave people with, is if you're going to start somewhere, start with continuous improvement. So if you have a good culture, you have good people, you just need to get into continuous improvement. And if you want a small way to get started, or to further your continuous improvement journey, because I remember in one of the sessions at the OPEX Summit, this lady was asking, oh my God, how am I going to, how is there a fast way to do process transformation? So I'm gonna do another little plug for Digital First here. There is a much faster way to do process transformation, and that is is our digital first rapid process transformation solution. Your team doesn't leave their desks. We pretty much bring the facilitators to you. It takes 90 minutes. The facilitators do most of the work in the background, but if you see on the left-hand side, it's a totally online whiteboarded model. People jump on, they're bought into the change, and then they go away from that. So any last parting words, Adil, before we end the session today? Really appreciate everyone taking the time to join us online. It's been a great session. Appreciate the support. If you're watching after, thank you for watching or listening after. Hopefully this is a very informative session. I learned a lot personally today, Adil, from you today. Thank you for taking the time to spend with us. You're a true transformation leader, and I look forward to hearing more about your transformation success as your career progresses.
Thank you, Nia, and thank you, Digital First, for having me here. I say just embrace change, right? Take it in small bites, and make sure you have a value proposition not only for your organization but for yourself, and take it as an opportunity to improve your own expertise and capabilities. I promise you, we are only at the beginning of this transformation journey, right? If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn. Happy to help.
Yeah, and we'll share Adil's. There's an article that Adil's written for transformation. So for the participants, we'll actually link it in the description. Adil has an article that he wrote for OpEx Week around transformation. So he's a author and a contributor to some influential resources, and so we're very lucky that you decided to join us today, Adil. Really appreciate your time, and yeah, thanks everybody. Talk soon. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye everyone.